Okay, in this tutorial we're going to look at making a menu system for our game. Now this video is just going to be focusing on the menu system, nothing to do with the game at all, and I'm going to add in a few buttons and show you to do some button effects as well. Okay, so in this game there's nothing really there. I've got room 1 and room 2. There's nothing there, so I'm just going to rename room 1 to menu. So if I just right click on it and then go to the rename and let's call it menu, and then let's just call this one rename level 1. Okay, so we've got our menu and nothing much else. So I've already imported some sprites in here. S menu, which I made in Photoshop earlier very quickly, and we've got some buttons again. And there's a reason why I've done a light and a dark one, because we're going to do some effects to it. The reason why this looks a little bit pixelated is because it's zoomed in. If we just go to its default view, it looks okay. Now, when you are doing a menu, this is really easy. You can use the inbuilt editor within GameMaker. So let's say, for argument's sake, if I just right click on sprites and then go to new sprite, you could, if you wanted to, draw some form of image here, but there's a few things. If you did want to do this with GameMaker, if you click on this thing here, this size option, and then you can basically resize it to make it a little bit bigger. So let's say, for example, you wanted to make it as stretches 1366, and you'll notice then straight away that changes to 1366. The reason being, these two are linked. So if you did want to use GameMaker to do that, you just 1366, 768, apply, and then all of a sudden you've got now a nice canvas where you can draw something. Personally, I prefer to use Photoshop because I find you've got a bit more control over things. And one thing you've got to remember is when you use the sprite editor within GameMaker, once you've made text, you can't go back in then and edit it. Whereas with Photoshop, with this text, I can just go back on the side, click on the layer, and then I can edit it, change it, and do anything I want to it. Okay, so let me just close everything down here for a second. What I'm going to do is just tidy things up. So on the sprite, I'm going to right click, create group, and let's call this menu. And then inside the menu, I'm going to right click, create group, and buttons. And the reason I'm doing this is I just want to make sure that all of my buttons and all of my menu are neat and tidy, and they're in a folder. So the S menu is inside the menu, and then the buttons are inside the buttons. And I'm going to do the same here with the object. It's really good to do this because you need to keep things neat and tidy, and if anyone else then looks at your game, they'll know what they can find. Now you'll notice I'm not making anything for the background because the background is just going to be put into the image, but I am going to be adding objects in here in a moment. So let's add the background into the menu page. So if I just double click it and we click on background, the easiest way really, you can click, drag, and then drop it in. And as long as you're on the background layer, it'll then put it in for you. And as you can see, it's done a pretty good job. If I zoom out a little bit, you can see the grid is on. If I turn the grid off, that pretty much fits, that's okay. Sometimes if your image is a little bit smaller or you've done the wrong size, if you click on the background, you can then stretch it out as well. So it will then stretch to the size of the room. And by default, the size of the room is 1366 by 768. So that's the width and the height there, unless you've changed it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some buttons in. So I've already now made, in my object, I've made some folders. So let's right click, create object, and let's say S play. Oh, in fact, sorry, O play it should be, not S play. So O play, and we're going to right click on buttons, go to create, and let's go O exit. Or exit, as I put. Let's bind the buttons. Now you'll notice with these buttons I have two in. So I've got S play and S play light and S quit and S quit light. The reason is we're going to do a little effect on them, and I can show you how to do that. It's quite easy. So if I click on S quit for the quit one, and We'll do S play for the play one. Okie dokie. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to just add events to these. Now if I go to add event, and it's going to be done by a mouse left pressed. So when the left mouse button is pressed, it's going to do something. Now because this is a new GameMaker, I'm just going to go with GML Visual for this one. And let's go over here. So let's now in the left press do something. Well, it's quite simple. We want to go to a room. So if I scroll down, I can find it, or if I type in the top here, go to, it's go to specific room. So I'm going to tell it to go to level 1. That's good. Now we're going to do the same thing over here in S exit. So if I add event, mouse left pressed, and then this time I'm going to look for exit, and I'm going to use this one here, exit game, and that's pretty much the code done. There's one or two other things we got to do. If I go back to the menu, we've now got to drag these on. So what I'm going to do on the left hand side is add in a new layer, rename, I'm going to call this buttons, and then let's add a play in, and let's add the exit in over here, or the quit button there. Okay, so let's compile our game and let's see what it does. Okay, so at the moment, when I click play, it goes to a blank box. Why does it go to a blank box? Well, obviously there's nothing there on level 1. So just to show you what I'm going to do on the background of level 1, we're going to change it to a different colour. There, I'll go for a light grey, right? Now, just as a quick one, I'm also going to change this to go into the test environment because I much prefer that as opposed to running in a web browser. Okay, so if we press play now, lovely, it goes into the grey, and let's just see what happens when we press quit. Excellent, that works. Now what we're going to do is just enhance this a little bit. So we are going to add an effect so that when we roll over it, it'll change colour, so it knows where we are hitting. So let's click and do something here. So if I go to OPlay, and what we're going to do is add an event, which is going to be what's called a mouse enter. So if I go to mouse enter, I'm also going to add one then for mouse leave. Mouse leave. This is how we add effects. Now I have done a number of videos on this. I'll probably put a link in the description below, so you can then have a sort of look at some of the other techniques that I've used. So when we mouse enter, what I'm going to do is I am going to change the sprite. So we're going to say set sprite, and we're going to go sprites, next menu, buttons, here we go. So this is the OPlay, so I'm going to go OPlay light. Now because I haven't got any frames, I don't need to worry about this. But then when I leave, I need to then reset it. So if I go here, sprite, menu, buttons, I need to go back to the S play. Let's just have a look and see what that's done. Okay, so that now gives us a nice effect. So you can see that's working there. We're going to do the same thing on the S quit. So if I just go down to the S quit or S exit, we're going to add in two events, mouse enter, and we're going to do the mouse leave as well. May as well do the same at the same time. So mouse enter, and it's the same type of thing. The only difference is we are choosing different buttons. So if I do that one there, and then we're going to do the same here. And let's just play this to make sure it works. Lovely. So both of these work. That's nice. Good. And it still works if I click on them. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the sound effect. Now where you get sound effects from is up to you. There's plenty of sites on the internet. I personally like Pixabay. There's lots of royalty free sounds on there, and they are pretty nice and easy to use. Now just as a quick idea, when you download a sound, it's going to be called something else here. So what we need to do, I'm just going to rename it. So if I click on that and call it SND for sound, click, and then I'm going to click, drag, and then drop it into the sounds folder here. And if you want to play it, it makes a little sound. That's good. So what do we do? Very simple. When we do the mouse enter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the sounds, which are purple. So you can see there, play audio, SND click. Let's do the same then for the O play, where mouse enter. And then let's play that. Let's try it. Okay, so if we hover over, nice. So all of a sudden we've got that, and what we're then going to do is we can add then this thing in again when we're actually left press. So if I right click and copy and right click and paste, watch what happens now when I go O play. So we go into it, but now when I click, it also makes the same noise as well. Now obviously you can have different noises or different sounds in here. It is totally up to you and totally your choice, but you just need to download another one. So that's basically how you would make a little menu system with a few buttons and do some little cool button effects using sounds and various different effects.